All right, so here's some of the stuff that I argued in on INTP Central in 2013. So what I was saying was that basically the different divisions in religion, different belief systems are based around different genetic groupings and their desire to promote and protect their genes in their groups. Um, so for instance, I said like the Shiites they're Persians and they're more Aryan, right? They're more Indo-European mixed with Arabs, and they developed the Shiite religion, whereas the Arabs they developed the Sunni religion. But then the Shiites they can say, oh, the reason why we don't want any Arabs here or any Sunnis here is because we have a different religion. But really, it just justifies genetic uh, conflict and genetic ethnic division. So I was saying that it's kind of a mirage. It's kind of a signpost, a facade that they're saying, hey, it's because we're different religions. That's why we're separating from them. And I said no. They adopt a different religion, a different belief system, because they belong to a different group, a different genetic group. So your group you belong to is going to affect your beliefs, and that justifies really their genetic Darwinian primordial like essential nature. And I said that that's what happens with every group, and that's why you'll find like the white people they adopt like very conservative uh, religious ideas, or even any type of belief system that they adopt. It's going to be to protect their group, or they'll adopt even like the atheists. They'll say they still adopt the belief system of, oh, but yeah, the brown people, the Muslims are dumb. They're religious dumb people of color, and that's why we want them out of our country, or they'll become radical conservative Christians, and then they'll adopt a belief system that justifies being against Muslims, or people of color, or just being against brown people in general, because they see them as more sinful or whatever. Uh, but what I'm saying is that people use these belief systems, but really is just a justification to help their group, the protection and promotion of the genes of their group. And then there's also the arguments that, like, for instance, in the with the Aztecs, the nobility, they would kill the the um, the lower class people, like millions of them, and cut out their hearts and stuff. And a lot of white people use that as justification for why white people killed them. And but that's not a very good justification, because white people also had gladiatorial fights, like, and also had very barbaric practices. Every group did. But but so but the point was the nobility would sacrifice a lot of people. But the idea was the nobility was a different genetic group than the rest of the people, because they all intermarried and interbred. So they were like a different species. I heard this theory from a professor at UCSD, and that's why they developed a belief system and gave the Aztec people a belief system that would be helpful for cementing their power. And that was the belief system that you guys should kill yourselves for the gods. And that really uh, was to help them to cement to entrench their power in their own genetic lines, the genetic lines of nobility. So this is my argument, and I pointed out like the Aryans in the Germans adopted Aryanism, Arianism, not Aryan as in the Aryan race, but Aryanism, which argued that God was what Jesus was not God, um, and that allowed for them to divide from the Italians, and different genetic groups dividing, and also it was a way for the nobility in Germany to entrench power, to adopt this belief system somehow. I forget exactly why, but again, that would still be genetic Darwinism. It's about the nobility trying to maintain power in their own genetic lines. And then people would say, oh yeah, but it's not that the Irish and the okay, or like the Irish, yeah, the Irish are fighting the Anglicans. It's because they're two different genetic groups. But then at the same time, like when the Europeans would fight the Muslims, the Europeans come together and say it's Christianity. Okay, we're all one. But the different genetic group of the Muslims who are Semitic, they adopt a different belief system because they're different genetic groups, and this justifies them fighting each other. So then the Arabs all get together and they fight each other. And I was saying it's all just genetic Darwinian motivations, and they say that's different belief systems, but really that's just a subterfuge. That's just a smokescreen. Um, but then even some people will say, well, no, these wars and stuff, they're really fought by the nobility or the kings and the queens who, and they're just really designed to kill the poor. So for instance, people will say, yeah, the Vietnam War was really just a way Some people say it was just really a way to get rid of the lower class people of society, like the people of color, and send them to war and have them all killed off. But even if that's the case, that's still to entrench power into the nobility, into the rich class, so that they can spread their genes more. And then they give the lower class these ideas that they're fighting for their country and stuff. And people by nature are tribal, and throughout genetic history, they would fight for their tribe. So you ingrain the tribal instincts, you reinforce them and tell them to go to war, and then they kill themselves off, and then you maintain your genetic power. And then the same thing happens with um, the kings and queens in Europe, or wherever. They would say, yeah, people would say, yeah, it's not that the people were fighting each other because they're different genetic groups, it's because the kings and queens were having them killed off. Well, even if let's say that that's the case, that's still so that the kings and queens can maintain power under their genetic lines. And if they're killing off their people intentionally, if that's your conspiracy theory, well, it still fits the genetic Darwinian framework of maintaining their power, maintaining the power within their genetic lines. And the same thing happened with the like the pharaohs. The pharaohs adopted a belief system and gave the people a belief system that said that they were gods, and that you have to help us. And the pharaohs would do incest, and all the people had to serve them and bow to them because they were gods. This maintains power in the genetic lines, and they would have incest so they can maintain the power in their genetic lines, and they can get all the wealth within their genetic lines. And it was a genetic Darwinian strategy. It ended up backfiring because sometimes the strategies can backfire, and then they had genetic mutations, and it was harmful. But you'll see that among nobility, or among the elite, like the kings and stuff, to maintain power in their genetic lines. So I was saying all these belief systems are just facades. People adopt belief systems that they think are going to be good for their genes. So the white people in America, they tend to become conservative because their belief system's more conservative. Well, it's what they think will best preserve their genes, best serve their group, right? Uh, Best to protect their own egos. And people of color will tend to be more liberal because they recognize that the conservative white people are, they think they're white supremacists, and they think that the liberal ideas, of welfare and helping them out is what's best for their genes. And but then the white people, they say no, they're just conquerors, and they're just parasites. And it's not because we conquered them, and it's not because we colonized them that they're struggling and stuff. It's not because of policies that harm them, and also a culturally biased educational system and stuff like that. It's because they're stupid, and they have low IQs, and they're dualistic consciousness, and they deserve it. And Colin Kaepernick should not put a knee down. So that was basically what I was arguing on INTP Central. And what my argument was on INTP Central was the only way to remedy this would be, wanted to set up a four-caste society, a four-class society, where you dissolve the nations, you dissolve all the genetic Darwinian alliances and stuff like that, and then you set everybody up into a four classes based around temperament, and then and you dissolve all of the ethnic tensions and all that, which is what the nations are built around. So I argued, yeah, like the communists, the Asians, well, that allows them to maintain their divisions, and they become more communist because they share with each other more because they have more homogenous genes, and they want to share with each other and help each other, but they don't allow a lot of other races into their group, into China and stuff, because really what motivates people's actions is genetic Darwinism, the perpetuation and promotion of their genes. So I said the only way that this could stop would be to dissolve the nations, which are really just smoke screens for genetic Darwinian alliances and maintaining the genes of your group. Dissolve them, set up the four-class society throughout the world. But then I recognize probably the religious Christians and stuff that would be against that, But my point was, once you dissolve the genetic Darwinian alliances and all that, then you're going to also dissolve the belief systems which maintain them. Because the belief systems are really just what's best for your group. People adopt it, what's best for their group or for their genes. If you dissolve the groups and the genes, and you set up a four-class society throughout the world, get rid of the borders, get rid of the different ethnic enclaves and stuff, then you would have a more harmonious society. And that's what my argument was on INTP Central. And basically, what I was saying is you can't change the fact that people's beliefs are based around what group they belong to. But what you can do is you can dissolve the groups that people belong to and create the four-class society. But I really did that because I wanted to get basketball DVDs. I wanted to get Power, get basketball DVDs, and like I said, I was posting stuff on Quadranting Model, and 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 nobody was checking it out because my mom was hiding all of my Facebook posts. I really would want to just get power through the quadrant model. But then nobody was understanding the quadrant model, so then I started trying to get power through this means. And then once I tried to get power through this means, that backfired and the people said they didn't have my DVDs and stuff. Then I tried to get power by becoming a conservative. And I did become a conservative. And I tried to, and the thing was on INTP Central, they kicked me off, and I couldn't delete all my stuff, all my these very liberal ideas about the four-class society. So then I tried to counteract those by becoming conservative in 2013 or 2014, and then things went crazy. But yeah, that was essentially what I argued on INTP Central though, is that the group you belong to is going to affect your beliefs, and yeah, beliefs can also affect the group you belong to. So for instance, you're going to find like Kanye West is a Nazi and he's black, but then also why is Kanye West a Nazi? Because what Nazis, what conservatives do is they say, oh yeah, we're special, we're good, and it's because we're superior, we have good genes, and we're geniuses, like Kanye West thinks. And the people who are poor, it's because their thoughts aren't right. They deserve it. They're just inferior by nature, and that type of mentality is used to maintain power. And that's why even the poor whites will adopt it, because it gives them the belief system that they're superior to the poor people of color, the impoverished people of color, and they say, yeah, because we have good genes, and it still gives them the sense of superiority, and it allows them to justify walls and stuff. That's why they become conservatives, and they like QAnon. See, QAnon with Trump, they're all about genes. Trump says, hey, people with good genes here, and QAnon will be like, yeah, Trump has such a high IQ, and his son has such a high IQ, and it's all about this idea of like innate superiority. Uh, and the white people like that, because then they can say, yeah, we're superior innately, and they're just inferior, and they don't look at the economic and the socio-economic and other factors like that, and they don't say, oh well, maybe black people are cussing and stuff on the rap videos because they're angry and they're resentful and they're being mistreated, and because of colonization and all the terrible treatment that's been done. And yeah, you could say it was because of genetic Darwinism. The white people are genetically linked, very, very, very homogenous group with the Asians too. That's why you see Asians and white people tend to adopt, can be more often adopting conservative policies, although white people the most, Asians second most. But they'll say, oh yeah, the reason why is because they're just stupid. They're low IQ people of color. But they don't look at the idea that maybe it was also because maybe it's because of economic, environmental policies, redlining, things that were done to harm people of color and black people especially. And also Mexican people or brown people, they can be incorporated into whiteness. So you'll see a higher percentage of them becoming conservative and adopting the stance of, oh yeah, we're superior, because some of them are more light-skinned also. And they get adopted into the whiteness, and then you'll see like some of the Orthodox Jews, they also adopt this idea of like, oh, like Mizrahi, oh yeah, the Ashkenazi Jews are so smart, they have such high IQs, and oh the liberals, oh they're stupid, and we should have really harsh justice systems, because the reason that for capital punishment and stuff, that's the reason why they do that, is because who's hurt by that? It's mostly the poor and mostly the people of color, because they're the people who are most marginalized and abused. And then by having really harsh justice systems, they can justify maintaining power, and they can say, well, it's because the criminals, they have bad genes and stuff, and it's not because we mistreat them and they're reacting and resentful and hateful, and it's because they're inherently inferior. So they have this really primitive or very like immature and kind of insulting and offensive type of mentality. That's very antithetical to the Bible. So like I described, even in the Bible, you have like it's all about the, like there's a Kenite woman who kills Sisera, who's like the really rich Canaanite ruler. And as I said, according to historians, the Israelites descend from Canaanite serfs or Canaanite slaves. So their ideology, the ideology of the Bible, is for the poor. So the Canaanite woman, when Sisera goes into her tent because he's running away from the Israelites, she she slams a tent peg into his cranium and kills him. Well, he represented the nobility, the Canaanite nobility that had that conservative mentality. Oh, they're just stupid. That's why the serfs they're the lower we're the gods. They're the lower realm of mankind, and it's that really selfish, arrogant type of immature mentality, and that's what Sisera does. She brings a tent pole into his skull. But even like the sages would say though, still you don't want to be happy that Sisera killed a man, because we don't want to be really happy about anybody killing anybody. So you see, it was a very compassionate. The Bible's very compassionate text, and it's moving people away from that conservative immaturity, kind of tyrannical Nazi ideology system of blaming the poor, scapegoating, marginalizing, and oppressing people. But the conservatives, they completely turn it around upside down. You see Trump holding up the Bible, and he's holding up the Bible, but not the true Bible. He's holding up the Bible of what's best, what he thinks is best for his group, his promotion of his genes, of the white people, and he's adopting the conservative mentality. But then, like the super conservative mentality, and then you'll even see like that with 50 Cent. 50 Cent, very conservative, very like, oh yeah, the people who he had that one interview where he was like, yeah, the people who are poor, they're poor because they're lazy, like rich people, we don't sleep. Like I don't sleep. I'm working all the time. Like it's this idea like, oh yeah, I work. Don't give to those people. Don't help out the marginalized. Don't help out the poor and stuff. They're just lazy. They're weak and lazy and stupid. They don't deserve what I got. Um, I'm at the top because I got the right mentality. I got the power mentality, right? The very arrogant, very self-indulgent type of consciousness. And you see that with a lot of the spiritual people too. Like, oh, I don't want to associate with the low lives. Like that bad energy, that's just gonna destroy my energy. Like, not all spiritual people are like this, but you'll find it in it. Like, and the reason why like I'm rich and stuff is because I have just the right mentality, the right. I want wealth. Like I'm attracted to wealth, and I don't deny it, and I'm not aversive to it. Whereas the poor people, it's just because they're aversive to wealth, and they don't want it, and so it's blaming the poor, and it's that type of mentality, that arrogant type of mentality, and then that's a mentality that the whole Bible's against. Like the whole Bible's like a reaction to that. So like even when Elijah heals the the Syrian commander, the Syrian commander is like he's very rich, he's very arrogant, and the way that he gets healed is by he was so arrogant, and then he wanted like a really elaborate, uh, a really elaborate healing done by Elijah. But Elijah just told him, no, just go in the river and tap your toe in the river. And he was like, what? No, I need something more fancy, more uh, you know, for a rich person. But then he comes back and then he's like, okay, I'll dip my foot in the river, and then he dips his foot in the river and he's cleared of his leprosy. And the idea was it's this arrogant mentality, the arrogant mentality of the rich. And then the Israelites beat the Arameans, who he was, uh, or who he was a commander for. And then they joined alliance with the Arameans. The Arameans were Semites, and this was just a metaphor of when the Israelites, they're all Semites, and they joined alliance against the colonizers. So, but my point is though, the whole Bible though is against the idea of, oh, and then Naaman, his servant, he wants to get the money from Elijah, like he uh or no, he wants Elijah says that he doesn't need any money, but then the Naaman's servant was like, no, actually, uh um oh, he tells Naaman that Elijah actually wants the money, but really he's going to take the money. And then he takes the money, and then the guy gets leprosy himself. So again, it's this idea of like this. It's not nothing against money, but it's the idea of the self-indulgent mentality, the arrogant mentality. Oh, I'm rich, I'm better, I'm superior. It's that lack of humility, and it's that really arrogant, self-indulgent, self-conceited type of mentality that the Bible really there's kind of a polemic against in the whole Bible. So But my point is though, um, yeah. So like, and also like, yesterday, my uncle, he sent me this message. He's saying like, it's the German, he thinks he belongs to the German group, so he wants to say, and he's done this before. Oh, the Germans were the good guys. We were fighting the British colonizers and stuff, and we were actually the good guys in World War II. But that's not true. Even my grandpa says, the the Nazis were white supremacists. They were nationalists, and and they killed Jews because they thought Jews were liberals and they were bringing immigration in and stuff. But then now what Germans will say is, no, we were killing the Jews because the Jews were wanting to colonize Israel and hurt the Arabs, and that's why we were killing the Jews. Um, well, let's say that was the case. Still, even if there was a genetic Darwinian motivation with the Jews doing that, that makes sense. Different genes have different motivations and stuff. But the thing is, that's not the reason why it happened, number one. But number two, he's going to adopt that belief system because then that makes him feel good about himself. Oh, yeah, that the Germans are the good guys. But he's still adopting a bullying mentality, that same conceited mentality, and that's not helping anything out by trying to blame the victim and saying, oh, Jews are the bad guys and stuff. That maintains nationalism. That whole bullying, uh, intimidating mentality. And that's what he wants, though, because he's a Trump supporter and he wants nationalism. And he wants to be like, oh yeah, Jews are evil, because he wants the Jews to be conservative and to have national borders, because he wants the brown Muslims, not to come out, not to to be marginalized and mistreated and abused, and not be allowed to move in and stuff. So, and then what the conservative Jews will do is they'll say, see, look, there's people who hate us, um, and then that maintains the barriers, and that's what the white supremacists do. The white supremacists will say, oh look, the Arabs, they want jihad, and they want, and they'll select uh, like videos of Arabs who are extremists, and they'll say, oh yeah, all Arabs are like this, and then that allows them to justify maintaining borders and maintaining conservative policies that demean them and dehumanize them, and then you see, Trump says that he wants to fight the Arab, or like he wants to fight the Iranians or whatever, right? And he sends the bomb to them. But really, Iranians and Trump are the same thing. They're both very conservative, against homosexuality, against, like, just like, they both want to, like, castrate the criminals in society and kill the criminals, which tends to be the oppressed people in society, and it's very predatory. They both have predatory mentalities, very rigid conservative mentalities, and a part of that rigid conservative orientation becomes, the white supremacy, the desire to maintain and protect and promote your group, um, and it's a very immature mentality, and it's a Nazi mentality. And but my point though is he's acting like, oh, I'm against Iran, but he's the same thing as Iran, or against, and we don't want to demonize Iranians, because that's what the people use to justify um, borders and justify division. But really, the problem is this, like, very conservative, self indulgent, like, self preoccupied mentality, um, that's very violent and very predatory, and yeah. So, but my point is, there's Nazis in every single group. Kanye West is a Nazi because he has that mentality. 50 Cent, he's supporting Trump. He's a Nazi too. Um, and it's that conceited, um, blame the poor, blame the victim. They deserve it because they're stupid, because they're criminals. They have criminal genes. They're bad by nature, and I'm good by nature, and that's why I'm successful. And even the impoverished whites. Oh well, yeah, the blacks are stupid. They're bad by nature. The Mexicans, like my friend who's like a conservative religious Christian. He's always saying little subtle things about black people and Mexicans being hypersexual. Like, yeah, the black guys really go after the girls and really, like, and same thing with the Mexicans, and they have a lot of unprotected sex, and basically demonizing. And I knew a white girl who was kind of like half Mexican, half white, and she was like a big Trump supporter, and she would say demeaning things about black people, um, about black people being more sexual and kind of like a really but she had a white son. She married a white guy and she had a white son. So she thinks she belongs to that group. She now belongs to the white group and maybe she has a white son. Now she's adopting a belief system that is demonizing and marginalizing people of color. And now she's a big Trump supporter. And this is a fact. Trump supporters are Nazis. And that's the way that it works. But people, because he acts like a Nazi because of your belief system, very rigid, unsophisticated, like very rigid, and fragile egos that they're trying to protect, and they're abusing and scapegoating the poor and the marginalized, which in America is especially black people, because black people have been marginalized throughout American history as slaves from the very beginning. They were stolen and marginalized, and it's maintained. And at the beginning, they justified it by saying that they deserve it, that they have low IQs. Christians will say, oh, they deserved it. They were pagans. We gave them Christianity. We saved them. But again, Christianity, what they say is Christianity is not what the Bible says is Christianity. The Bible, like I said, is very liberal. The Bible looks really highly upon the tribal people, like the Rechabites, the people who would be more like the black people. And it looks down upon the agriculturalists who were the dominators, the oppressors, who marginalized and who were the conceited ones who were colonizing and mistreating people. Um, so the problem is that type of mentality, that type of bullying, intimidating, um, self conceited, arrogant mentality that lacks humility and lacks compassion, and is the product of an unstable, unsteady, fragile egos of insecure people. Um, so um, yes, almost.